My mom had a couple of bears that she wanted to gift, but she didn't really like them the way that they were currently set up with their little neckties. So she wanted to do a little upgrade on it. So she started out by cutting off the existing one, which for this, it's always best to use the smaller scissors just to make sure that you're not accidentally puncturing the fabric you're trying to save. Trying to take off all of those little threads are probably the biggest pain because you're trying to get it all together, but you can use your scissors just to cut off any of that excess. And eventually you can pull it all out. In my mom's case, she wanted to add a flower to this specific bear. Now, the flower is something that I made previously for another project. So if you're interested in knowing how I made this fabric flower, then let us know in the comments and I'll do a video on that. I love making these types of flowers for our little small business. Since I had sewn a felt to the back of this flower, that meant that my mom was able to basically place it around the ribbon. Before doing that though, she needed to measure more or less how long she wanted the ribbon to be. After all, once you start sewing this ribbon, anything that you try to undo will basically break apart to pieces. So after she cut it and confirmed that yes, this size would be the perfect fit for the flower, then she was able to start figuring out where to place it. It looks like at first she thought about doing the usual with the long ribbon, and then she was considering maybe doing just having it be nice and tight around the neck without anything loose, but in the end she did end up putting the flower right in the middle of the ribbon. So check out your options if you're also trying to figure out what to do, and of course always accept any help from your little babies. So Teddy likes to help / provide some unsolicited entertainment. And then once she was ready, she put the ribbon on top of one of the sides of felt that I had on there. So that way she could pass the needle easily through the other side and start attaching it. And then after doing a stitch or two, really trying to affirm the ribbon to the one side, then at that point she was able to pass the needle through and go to the other side. So that way it would be almost like a hug for the ribbon that was in between both of these sections. And because of the nature of this ribbon, if you ever tried cutting this thing, it can break into little pieces super fast. So it's a little bit of a gamble to sew with it, at least in my experience. So it's just very important that you take the extra time to make sure that you have some good stitches that are holding it in place. Especially this little bear, it was going for a little girl, so you wanted to make it durable for her experience so she wouldn't lose her flower midway through playtime. My mom just kept sewing and sewing and sewing just to make it stick, doing different types of stitches, going from the inner part to the outer parts, going from the corners to the insides, and just trying to really make it stay. And she didn't have to worry too much about how this looked on the back because this part is gonna be on the bear itself. So as long as it's tight, that's all that matters. No one's going to be taking off this little ribbon off the bear. When she finished doing that final knot, then she put it right on the bear. She definitely knew that the flower was going to go here in the front. So to make sure that it stayed where she wanted it to be, she made an initial knot to the back using the ribbon. Then once she was happy with how tight it was around the neck, she added a pin to the middle of it to hold it in place while she turned it around and made sure that it was actually where she wanted it to be, which it really looks so adorable. I love how like girly it looks now with the print, and the flower is just perfect. So once she confirmed that it was where she wanted it to be, she hadn't cut the thread off the flower from her original sewing. Instead, she kept it on there, which in itself, having such a long thread is a feat in itself because it can often get tangled on its own. So it's just something to be mindful of. If it's easier for you to have smaller threads, go ahead and do that. If you feel courageous, then you can try the really long thread just so everything can stick together. But at this point, my mom was just focused on making sure the ribbon and the flower stuck to the bear. So you can see that she's grabbing both a little bit of the ribbon, a little bit of the felt, crossing to the other side even, just to make sure that it's being held in place. And the stitches that she's doing on the fabric, it's going to be covered by the flower itself because it's nice and voluminous. So we just keep on repeating until she felt that it was a good place to stop and it was going to be secured. So sort of like how we saw in the original ribbon that they sewed it on multiple times, my mom is repeating that same idea, but now we got a flower on top. Once it's nice and tight, it feels like it's going to stay where it's supposed to be, then we can move on to the next part by closing it up, creating that knot with the needle itself. And yes, I didn't realize that this was something we both did. Maybe I learned this subconsciously. We both do double knots when possible when we have the extra thread. And then at that point, because we're done with the flower part, then she cut off the excess of the thread and moved on to the back. Now for the back, since she had already marked where she wanted the ribbon to meet, then all she had to do was take out that pin and start sewing right in the middle. And you see that as she's doing this, because we're connecting the two sections of the ribbon, then she's passing it from side to side so that neither of these will slip through and will actually stick to the bear. Hopefully you're enjoying watching my mom create this little bear accessory, and if you are, be sure to subscribe because we do a lot of crafting and DIYs together, and sometimes, yes, I will do voiceover over her adorable crafts. So it's just something that we like to share. So getting back to the craft at hand, to make the ribbon, she cut off the excess of the thread because then she needed to make that bow. Now trying to make a bow, it's like tying a shoelace basically, but when you're trying to do it for crafting, you really want your strings to be at the bottom. So that's kind of like one of the trickiest, like how do we make it so that it stops moving up and how do we make it match? So my mom found that middle area where it was the way that she wanted it, and then we had the little bear. And the bear does have a sibling, so there'll be another video with the sibling with the bow tie. But all in all, the project came out super cute. And thanks for watching, and be sure to watch this video right here by my mom on how to make a cute mini wallet.